Welcome to Across Africa, our weekly roundup from across the continent. I'm Rochelle Harrison-Pless. Coming up, brake failure is to blame for last month's deadly train crash in Cameroon. That's according to newly uncovered documents amid the ongoing investigation. That's coming up in our exclusive report. When hitting the road is high risk, we take a closer look at cross-border trade in Nigeria, which has suffered amid the Boko Haram insurgency. And women in Rwanda take to two wheels. While across the country it's mostly men pedalling from A to B, we visit one village where bicycles are the transport of choice for everybody. But first, as the probe into a deadly train crash in Cameroon continues, newly uncovered documents blame the accident on brake failure. The packed passenger train flew off the rails as it travelled between the country's main cities Douala and Yaoundé, killing more than 70 people and injuring hundreds of others. 1 month on from the tragedy, our correspondents went back to the site of the accident and sent us this exclusive report.
Lifted out of the ravine, this is the carcass of one of the first 4 carriages from train 152 that went off the rails. The carriages are being lifted out to make sure no one is trapped underneath. The Cameroonian Prime Minister and several of his ministers heading the Commission of Inquiry visited the scene as part of a mission to shed light on this tragedy.
These are the cars that were in the ravine.
On site, Benoit Esiga, a former train conductor, is sought after by investigators for his expertise in railways.
It was awful. As you can see, all this damage shows the violence of the fall. You see the seats that are torn off, the metal's completely torn off. It was very violent.
A violent end for an overloaded train. According to this internal document obtained by France 24, the train consisted of 17 carriages weighing 675 tons. Yet, according to Camrail, the rail operator, a passenger train should not exceed 650 tons. The driver therefore must have gotten special permission from his hierarchy to leave the station overloaded.
That's the 232. It was here.
According to the experts' calculations, 8 additional cars were added in haste on the morning of the tragedy. 8 Chinese-made cars like this one, lacking a proper braking system.
What we can be sure of is that the braking system is to blame, and that's what caused the excess speeding that we experienced. This part of the track has to be passed at 40 kilometers an hour. Unfortunately, the train passed at 96 kilometers an hour.
On the morning of the tragedy, a train inspection identified a lack of brakes already existed on the locomotive, and the brake pads were completely worn out. This alone is enough to bolster the investigation and trial, placing responsibility on Camrail, a subsidiary of the Bolloré Group, targeted by several complaints filed in Cameroon and France.
Camel caravans are once again a common sight in northeastern Nigeria, thanks to the country's ongoing military offensive against Boko Haram. For years, the Islamist militant group had shut down the transport routes that link Borno State to Nigeria's neighbouring countries. But although cross-border trade has picked up once again, it's still a high-risk game with very few rewards. Our correspondents report from Maiduguri.
This is the southwesterlymost point in the trans-Saharan trade route. Camel meat and urine are believed to possess health benefits in this part of the world. The Boko Haram insurgency put a stop to camel caravans until recently. This man is among the first in several years to drive camels from Chad to Nigeria. His journey was fraught with danger.
On the way here, we encountered Boko Haram. They tried to steal my horse. They've come to realize that the goods we buy and transport are of value. They cause us a lot of problems.
Maiduguri has bounced back and is once again the busiest trading hub in the northeast of the country. But the 7-year-long insurgency now being fought in the far fringes of the state is taking its toll on cross-border trade. And the worst recession in Nigeria's history and the devaluation of the naira is being felt here. The city's Chamber of Commerce is back up and running, and its president hopes that francophone traders will return in greater numbers.
It's an advantage to our brothers that come from the francophone countries when they come with, for example, 1 million CFA and they get only 450,000 naira before. They almost get 1 million naira now. So you see what our loss is also their gain.
Before the insurgency, 20 trucks laden with made-in-Nigeria goods bound for neighbouring countries would leave this area of the city every day. A year ago, this trade route had ground to a halt because all roads leading out of Maiduguri had been closed by the military. Over the past few months, the cross-border trade has resumed, but transport costs have soared due to continued insecurity.
There are rumours that the border has reopened fully, but it's not true. It's not possible to travel to the Gamburu-Gala border alone. You need a military escort because there are still some insurgents in the border region.
The road to recovery in this fractious region remains littered with risks, but a period of relative peace is paving the way for the return of some brave francophone traders.
To Uganda now, a country with one of the highest rates of teen pregnancy in the world. But mobile health clinics with a difference are doing their bit to drive down numbers, handing out contraception and safe sex advice in some of the poorest neighbourhoods of Kampala and Entebbe.
Uganda has one of the highest rates of teen pregnancy in the world, but these tuk-tuks are helping to drive it down. The three-wheeled mobile health clinics can go where other vehicles can't, reaching deep into the slums of Kampala and Entebbe, where women have limited access to healthcare.
Oh, the point of using a tuk-tuk is it's easy to use in slum areas because there are some areas which are hard to reach with the vehicles. For example, if you entered into a slum, some vehicles can't reach, but with a tuk-tuk it will penetrate and reach where the people are.
The initiative by sexual healthcare charity Marie Stopes International sees the tuk-tuks transform into private counselling areas, while the tents they transport become clinics, offering condoms, implants and the pill to women who would otherwise go without. The charity says teaching teens about safe sex is essential in a country where abortion is illegal unless the mother's life is at risk.
The young people are really sexually active, but parents, guardians are failing to appreciate and recognize that.
When Nantachia got pregnant at 15, she was kicked out of home.
When my dad found out that I was pregnant, she felt very bad because I was still in school. And that the tuition was not very fine for him. So he was like, you can go.
She now works as a peer educator, talking to teenagers about the importance of practicing safe sex.
We're safe because we use the methods which makes us to be safe. We use the condoms.
The tuk-tuks visit around once a month, but counsellors ensure they can be contacted at any time in a bid to spread the message about contraception.
Next, when it comes to getting from A to B, bicycles are a cheap and efficient means of transport. In Rwanda, bikes are a common sight. What is less common, however, is seeing women riding two-wheelers. But one town in central Rwanda has proven to be the exception, as Thais Brook and Duncan Woodside report.
Dan Seal calculates distances by counting pedal strokes. She bikes to market and her fields. A phenomenon that's bizarre elsewhere in Rwanda, but not here.
Here in Bugesera, it's not strange to see a woman on a bike. But for example, once I went to another town, Bichumi, not far from here, and people made fun of me. They looked at me, they laughed. Even the foreigners who came here are very surprised.
Bugesera is a dry region, and for many, water sources are far from homes. So women tend to bike the daily water errand.
Hello.
Dan Seal's neighbours got married 7 years ago. The dowry? A bike, of course.
In marriage, what's important is to bring a bike to the husband's family, because with a bike one can go to hospital or go to look at things at the market.
As is the case across Rwanda, bike taxis are everywhere. But even here, it's a job strictly for men. David came here to find work.
When I first arrived, watching a woman on a bicycle, I thought it was really strange, surprising. But I got used to it after a while.
For women here in Bugesera, having two wheels is a source of pride and independence, even if equality hasn't yet quite extended to the bike taxi trade.
And finally, a dash of dubstep, a dollop of hip-hop and a generous serving of electro, all mixed in with traditional Egyptian sounds. This is the kaleidoscope of music taking the country's underground by storm, an eclectic mashup that's redefining Egypt's independent music scene.
In this club in downtown Cairo, musicians Ahmed Saleh and Abdallah Minyawi play their electronic beats to a swaying crowd. The duo are part of a wave of new talent that has surged onto Egypt's underground music scene in recent years, sometimes infused with traditional Egyptian sounds.
There is movement in the music scene. There's a lot of collaborations, a lot of concerts, and a lot of possibilities for more exposure.
The movement began in the mid-2000s when musicians bypassed record labels to reach their listeners directly online. This also led to the birth of a new type of music called maharaganat. Emerging from working-class neighborhoods, it became Egypt's most listened-to genre. Using cheap or free software, these musicians mix traditional Egyptian music with electronic sounds, creating loud, eclectic beats.
These songs are now the most played at weddings. It's the only thing they play. At the beginning, people were against us. Then we imposed our style, and now everyone listens to Maraganat, old and young alike.
Egypt's 2011 uprising, which toppled longtime dictator Hosni Mubarak, boosted the movement, creating a security void which made it easier to open spaces and organize festivals. While many venues promoting new and experimental music have since closed, several still hold regular live sessions. And other artists in the region, including from Lebanon, Syria, and Jordan, have joined up with them to collaborate.
That's it for this week. Stay with us here on France 24. Lots more news coming up.